So, welcome to the Introduction to Web Design Principles and User Experience, or UX. I'm your professor, Dr. Lisa English Dowdell. Now, many young designers often misunderstand the concept of web design. Web design is about design, it's not about coding or front end development. Now, of course, it would be great if you know some coding language like HTML, CSS, or Java, but you can't get yourself deep into front end development. That's not the core of web design. Web design is to basically solve the communication problem between users and web page information. It uses these five different elements to do so: typography, layout, UI elements, color, and content. Now, before we get into that, I wanted to talk about some of the skills that are needed for web designers, just so you can kind of keep that in mind if this is the journey that you're on. So, one is to master the basic rules of visual design, and this course is going to cover a lot of that, just the basic rules, to understand. The next one is to learn the color principles. And again, we'll talk about some of those as well. Um, coming up with color schemes and things like that. It's not just, throwing, colors, onto a web page. There's a whole principle, there's a whole set of principles that are behind that. The other one is to master the basic knowledge of interaction design. And again, this is something we'll talk about. Mastering a web UI mockup tool. So, there's different tools that are out there that will help you to mock up a web page. So you want to be able to master one of those. Another skill that's needed is to understand the basic coding language like HTML and CSS. And even though, like I said, a few minutes ago, you won't, web design isn't really about coding, but understanding the limitations, that your web developer or whoever's going to be coding your web page, their limitations are going to help you as far as in your design, understanding how they're going to be laying out the page with HTML, how they're going to actually be using CSS, in order to style the page. Another one is to, of course, be familiar with the company's products and the user group. That's understanding, their branding and things like that, so that you can be able to carry that on into as far as your web design. Mastering a front end coding editing software. Now, even though, like I said, it's not, your primary focus, but if you understand again how to do that front end coding, it's going to make you more of a more valuable web designer. And then, of course, knowing about SEO, which is search engine optimization. Now, any interaction design like web design that hopes to be successful must prioritize visual interaction in these five different elements of web design, which is again typography, layout, UI elements, color, and content. So let's talk about each one of these. Now, for typography, you know, you should feel free to experiment with different fonts and styles, but you don't want to go overboard. You want enough diversity to keep it interesting, like, differentiating between the different categories of text, like headings and paragraphs and so on and so forth. But whatever typefaces, styles, or weights that you use for these categories, you got to be consistent with them. So like if you use a bold sans serif font for, like, say, an H1 heading, you need to be sure that that all your H1 headings kind of reflect that. So some of the best practices around web text, it differs from print text. Besides ease of reading, you know, um, you must remember that users, on the web, they're going to have a shorter attention span, and your website, needs to be skimmable. People land on your site, and usually, they want to find something specific, rather fast. You also have to look at accessibility and responsiveness. Responsiveness, whereas multiple device types, view your website, or different screen sizes, and it doesn't really mess up their view. So some of the website typography guidelines are: one, limit the number of typefaces per website. Years ago, when we used to do websites, especially, when all these different types of typefaces came out, you'd find websites where they would use, like, basically it looked like they used everything that was in their library. So you want to limit it. Normally what you do is you just kind of stick to, it's maybe, one for your heading type, one to maybe, like if you've got some kind of promotional emphasis, and then one for your body. You don't want to have a multiple of different web typefaces that you're using for a single website. You also want to use sans serif fonts for body text. So this is the one that doesn't have like the little extra, like um, tails and things like that on the fonts. This is going to make it a lot easier when you're looking at it on the web or on your screen. You want to stick to standard fonts at first. Um, you want to size your text appropriately, because again, people are looking at things on their screens, but they're also looking at your page maybe on a mobile phone, and you don't want to make your text so small, that they can't read it, or you don't want to make it so large, like if it's a paragraph font, that it causes them to scroll so much because it's taking up so much space. Don't use all caps. We've already kind of learned that, even in, like, texting people, that kind of makes it seems like it's all shouting. I mean, if it's in a header, or in a title, that's fine. But in your body text, unless you're trying to emphasize something, you don't want to use all caps. Use colors carefully and intentionally. So don't just have a whole bunch of rainbow colors. You want to have your colors where they represent, as far as your branding and things like that. And we'll talk a little bit more about colors in a bit. And then you want to stay between around 40 and 80 characters per line. Again, we're trying to make things more readable, for like web pages, and looking at it on a computer or on your phones or on tablets. Provide sufficient spacing between the lines. You don't want to cramp everything together. Again, trying to look at something digitally is already a strain on our eyes, because we're looking at it like in pixels as opposed to, being more vector based. So you want to make it a little easier, and having sufficient spacing between the lines is going to help that. And then eliminate text animation. Again, back in the day when we were able to create like all this different animation, you saw blinking text, you saw scrolling text, things like that. You don't want to include those type of things. Now, great font pairing is going to be essential to good web design. This is when you're putting different fonts together. Again, like I said, you want to have maybe a different font for your heading versus the paragraph portions or body portions of your web page. So some of the basic rules for font pairing are: one, is that they do need to complement. It's always safe to find like a font pairing that complements one another. A great font combo should harmonize, in that, you know, you don't want to have it too similar where you can't tell the difference between the two, but you don't want to have them too different as well. You want to use font superfamilies. This is another way. You don't have to, but this is a way that you can ensure as far as that good pairing. A font superfamily is like a set of fonts that are designed to kind of work together. So using like different fonts within that same superfamily is going to make it, safe. Um, and then also contrasting. Contrast is going to be key. Two fonts that are, say, too similar, like I said, often will cause some conflict. However, contrast done the right way kind of brings out the best of each font. Like an example would be combining like a serif with a sans serif. This is a well-known combination. Like I said, when you're reading like a paragraph, where something has to be basically read, you want to make sure that you're using like a sans serif for the web. But to contrast with that, your headers could actually be serif fonts. And then another thing you want to do is you want to choose only one boss. So one font should be the boss. This establishes the hierarchy for the fonts on your page. And this is achieved by varying maybe the size, the weight, or the color. Now, here on this screen are a few really nice combinations or different font pairings. And again, kind of look at this. You've got like a serif, for like your headers. Remember I told you serif is when you have like these extra little, accents and tails and things like that on the actual lettering. And then using a sans serif, for the body to make it actually more readable. Now, website layouts navigate how the viewer should view or should read a website. So, if the visual hierarchy doesn't correspond with the natural movement of the human eye, it's more likely for the viewer to have a poor experience or get confused. Now, many designers believe that the a web layout, for every site that they work on should be completely unique, to satisfy the goals of the project. And this is far from the truth. If you visit popular websites, you'll notice that many of them use similar layouts. And this is because these layouts have three significant design characteristics. One, they're reusable. Common website layouts, have become common because they've proven that users can work with them. They're also familiar. So a good user experience is created by building a sense of familiarity with users. Visitors feel a pleasurable sense of like deja vu, when they see familiar features laid out as they say would expect. Now, as a result, people will spend, time digesting the content rather than focusing on like the page's website design. This is where a lot of times we'll use templates, because these templates, have proven designs that work with the experience and things like that. Now, there's different types of website layouts, and we'll talk about each one of these, but it's, and show you an example of each one of these. Okay, so one design type is a magazine layout, and here's an example of that. This is a preferable option for like magazines and news websites that contain, say, a huge number of different stories and elements. It's inspired by like newspaper print layouts, and they combine like headlines, images, and copy to attract the users. Now, although copy centric and text heavy, these layouts, they're engaging and they're still pretty easy to scan. Another type is the asymmetrical layout. And this layout adds dynamics to the layout and serves to give focus to like a specific part of interest, with asymmetric type and high contrast. Um, the designer not only adds depth to the composition, but highlights like say a particular element in a way that viewers are instantly drawn to it. um, it divides the website composition into two, say, unique parts, in size and weights. And it creates that visual movement by shifting the balance from one side to the other side, making the design feel more dynamic. Now you need to decide like which part of the content you wish to highlight. For example, you might have a photo, of a product on one side, like maybe the call to action, so on and so forth. Now, a card grid layout like this one here, this is a great way to contain like a lot of information in an organized and easy to process way. The grids of cards, this is a type of layout that contains like, the different cards, and the cards can differ in size and spacing and style and the number of arrangements. Now, this type of layout is going to work best in responsive design. Some examples of that use this kind of layout like our Pinterest, YouTube, Netflix, Etsy. These all use these designs. Now, since the layout for the most part is non-hierarchical, no one item truly kind of stands out over the others. All the info is basically treated equally, and it's good for content-rich websites like, if you have a blog or online stores and things like that. The box layout, this type of modern layout is preferred for like blogs or portfolios or even like corporate websites due to its versatility and kind of clean look. The boxes layout usually have like a header width box on top of, all the others. And then the header box contains like maybe the pages title, explanation of its content and maybe its menus and things like that. Now it merges multiple pieces of content into say one geometric design, with each bit of info neatly constrained into a box. And then the elements, they don't overshadow each other, so it creates like this unified look. And then each box will lead to say like a different web page, where users can say learn more about the topic or the product, that is shown within the box. Then we have our split screen layout here. So when the screen splits horizontally or vertically or both, that's what we call it, a split screen layout. Now, since visually the design invites its viewers to focus, say, on both sides of the screen, these websites kind of keep their content to a minimum. This type of layout gives the viewers like two choices. Like for instance, the left screen will show like maybe one side of the business, maybe like design services or something like that. Whereas the right side of the screen may focus on like maybe another part of the business, which might be like front end development services, or maybe to support like say maybe one idea from two different angles, so like maybe if you have a website on autism, one side might be from the perspective of a parent, focus on the parent, information related to the parent, and the other has more of a child angle. Now, the most of the split screen layout, you have to consider incorporating some motion, by making each half kind of behave slightly like employing like a parallax scrolling. That's when like the background moves at say a slower pace than the foreground. The other type is a single column, and this is a popular choice for a lot of modern websites. Single column layouts have the advantage of allowing viewers to kind of focus on the content without the possibility of distractions. So a good choice, for this might be more like for blogs or news feeds with like endless scrolling. It also kind of keeps the design consistent across as far as like mobile devices. Then we have the layout with a fixed sidebar. Here's the sidebar here, if you can see it. So the menu options are placed, say, in the vertical column, or in either maybe the left or the right part of the website, and they're it's going to be constantly visible. So, the viewer can always access the navigation anytime. This is going to work best, if you only have like a few navigation options, whereas the rest of the website's going to scroll, but that navigation sidebar is fixed. Another kind that we'll see a lot of is the hero layout. And this layout centers around, say, a hero image. It serves as, say, a user's first glimpse because um, it has this prominent placement toward the top of the web page that usually kind of extends full width. They usually contain like maybe a clear call to action. Now you have what's called the F pattern layout, and this is the most common and say pure classic type of website layout. It follows like the natural eye patterns, the F shape, or sometimes this might be referred to as like the E shape pattern, allows viewers to scan in two horizontal lines before checking the right side, for more information. Now, this layout is ideal for like if you've got like a data heavy website that, provides like different options for viewers to click on. You'll need to prioritize your information and include the most valuable elements first. Now, the Z pattern design, it creates a route from top left to top right, then diagonal to bottom left, and then bottom right. So it creates a route that leads the viewers to like a conclusion or a goal. And the goal is usually like a sign up for a service or subscribing or something like that. Now, this pattern proves to work because that's the same way, say, we read a book, or a newspaper. We read it from top to bottom, left to right. Okay, so now let's talk about another aspect, of as far as web design, and that's understanding how to use and using UI elements or user interface elements. So one of the one type of user UI element that you'll be using on your web page may be like a logo, and this is going to be a key element of a brand. Um, it's a symbolic representation. So it's an obvious element of most websites, that present companies, brands, services, communities, and organizations. Even like personal blogs and portfolio websites often feature like an original logo these days. The next element is a photo, and photos could be called the classics of web design imagery. They're used for like a wide variety of goals, such as like, theme photos, demonstration photos, photos of different items, featured photos for like maybe blog articles, even like the hero banner photos. Then there's illustrations. And illustrations are made in like various different styles. You have like custom illustrations that effectively say support the quick perception of like whatever the information is on the page or the screen. They also set a solid foundation of like a visual originality, and it adds aesthetics and beauty to like blogs and websites. We often, read, as well as like maybe broadens the creative horizon for different artists. And then there's the mascot element, and that's a character or personified image that becomes like a symbolic representation of a brand, a company, a symbol, or even like a public figure. Now, mascots can communicate directly, with like maybe speech bubbles. They can provide like visual prompts with various facial expressions. They can reflect the mood of the user with different graphic variations. They can give helpful instructions in, say, tutorials or congratulations on achievements. These kind of interactions, they provide a more, say, human-like, enhancing, say, the general user experience. Now, color is going to be important. You can use color to say stir your visitors like emotions, or respond to say a call to action. It can be used to increase say brand recognition, by maybe a staggering, I think, like 80% by this study conducted by the University of Loyola, Maryland. Um, a color wheel, as we see here, is often used, and this is a tool that can help us visualize relationships between colors in a standard and systematic way. Now, blue is probably like the most popular color for many corporate brands, because it symbolizes trust and reliability. So color choices, that's going to be vital, for satisfying like user experience. An effective color scheme can make a massive difference, say, to your users and contribute to the success of your website. You want to rely on color theory to come up with like harmonious palettes and find right color combinations. You know, there's different ways that we can complement the color. I'm going to provide a little bit more information, about color, especially when it comes to as far as the golden rule, the 631 rule. I'll provide a little bit more information in the course room as far as that. Just to give you a little bit more insight about color. But like I said before, color isn't just something you just pick colors. One, if you're dealing with a website that say is based on a corporation or something like that, already has a brand, then of course you're going to pull the colors from that brand. But you want to make sure that, whatever colors you pick, you want to use this color wheel. Like, examples are, picking something that's monochrome, which is basically going to consist of like the various different tints and shades, of a single color. So, maybe if the color blue, like I said, if you're wanting to do something that's more corporate or informational, you can pick these different colors and have these different variations of elements on your page. Often some folks will do like complementary, which are basically the two colors from opposite sides of the wheel. So, that means like this red and blue, your website would be red and blue, or maybe a blue, violet, and orange, or yellow, the green, yellow, and the mauve. Then you could have like three colors that basically sit next to each other. These three here could be like the colors of your website. These three here, so it would be the three that sit next to each other. You know, or also another one is to draw like an equilateral, I'm sorry, triangle on the color wheel, and then that would be your color scheme. So, maybe these three colors here, these three here. So this blue, green, this orange, and this the mauve, so again, rely on color theory. That's what we're saying here. Rely on color theory to create your color palettes and your combinations, and then utilize the color wheel to visualize the relationships between the colors and your color schemes. Again, here's a website, but again, I'll provide some additional information as it relates to color. Now let's talk about the content on your website. So content consists of text, images, video, animation, and audio. Now don't forget to provide like accessibility. For example, like if you're doing some audio, make sure there's some accompanying text, and then if you're using images, make sure that you're providing like, alternative text for that. So how do you know if the UI design of a website is good? So the Nielsen-Norman group defines usability using these 5 characteristics. One is learnability. Can the user complete their task with little difficulty? If they're struggling, searching your website for how to make a purchase or things like that, that's not learnability. That is not good UI design. Efficiency, does the interface allow the user to complete tasks in a timely manner? Again, am I having to search, for everything? Um, if I'm taking too long to do something, then that's not good UI design. memorability after leaving the website. How likely will the user be able to remember how to use it the next time they visit? So if they go to your website again, is it kind of memorable, as far as how they were able to navigate your website? And then, as far as errors, what steps does the interface take to, say, lessen the chance of user error, and how do you let the user correct the error? So this is something that you need to look at. And, a lot of these, we're going to be looking at it when we do our usability testing, of our projects. And then last is satisfaction. Does the enjoy enjoy interacting with the design? Is it something that they enjoy? Is it providing a good user experience for them? Now, personally, I always refer back to the usability characteristics defined by this group, and for me, um, they kind of hit the nail on the head as far as some of the things that you need to kind of question and look at when you're looking at and questioning whether a website has a good UI design. Now, on top of these standards, good UI design should also reflect the personality of the brand in order to stand out from the competition and, say, provide users with, say, again, a delightful experience. Um, so, there's a reason. There's a few websites I'd like for you to check out, as far as, how usable a website is, UIs with good experience. Now, here's one here, this annual digest. Now, it's an online magazine. But looking at it, the vibrant orange, against like the monochrome, like color palette, it provides like this visual stimulation for us. And then their use of like larger fonts and images, these are things that are very popular with like UI design. Here's another one. This is a more of a WordPress portfolio. Um, but the copy here, it basically kind of stands out. It's in bold. It provides, confidence, about like what this person's best qualities are. And then it includes like these fluid animations, with very smooth transitions that go between the different web pages. Now, although they've gone through some different transitions, but Airbnb, it does a couple of things really well. It thinks about, okay, what is it that people come to their website to do? And it makes it prominent on their website. So it prioritizes making it easy to start a booking, because that's where people come to. They come to actually book a place to stay, and it creates that trust, between, the person that's booking it and the person that is the owner of the Airbnb. And it has well thought out copy, and it uses these very engaging photos and videos, so that you can basically see how the different facilities, the different houses are going to be. It conveys not only an emotional tone, but also a very professional tone. Think about if these were blurred pictures, or, or not good quality pictures, that would take away from as far as your confidence, in booking, say, a particular room or something like that. Now, website interface elements, there's so many different things that we can put on our website, but these are just a few of ones that we would find on the website. Of course, this is not our limitation, but one is input controls. So if you've got like a form or something like that, this would be like your check boxes, your radio buttons, your drop down list, your list boxes, buttons, so on and so forth. These are all intentional. You don't just throw, a text box on a screen, or, or whatever the case is. These are all intentional as far as how they look, what message they convey, how they fill in the website, how they're aligned, different things that we're going to be getting into with this course. Um, Also, another interface element are your navigational components. So these would be like your breadcrumbs, your sliders, your search fields, your paginations, your different tags, things like that. And then also your informational components. These would be like your tooltips, your icons, your progress bars, notifications, message boxes, modal windows. All of these different elements, make up the website, and they all have to be intentionally and as far as carefully designed so that not only are they a good user interface and functional user interface, but that they also provide a good user experience. A container. Is like in a concordion. If you've never seen or know what a accordion is like a vertically stacked like list of items that utilize like a more of a show and high functionality. So like for instance, when a label is clicked or something like that, it'll expand. Here's a good website. These W3 School website has a lot of good information as far as how and when to use like different input controls, different informational controls, different types of website interface elements. Like I said, everything is strategic. Everything is intentional, as far as what you want to use. Using, say, for instance, a text box versus a drop down. There's a reason why you would use one over the other. These are all the things that you have to consider when you're doing like website design. And then last, I'm going to provide some of these resources as well within the course room. But these are some of the resources that kind of talk about some of the things that we talked about today, in a little bit more depth, as far as, website design.